Good day, my name is Zulkifli Dading. My report is about Wilhelm Geisner. Topic outline. Wilhelm presented a systematic argument that all psychological disorder can be explained in terms of brain pathology. Intended learning outcomes to learn about the argument of Wilhelm. In 1845, Wilhelm, the author of the most important textbook of psychiatry of the day, wrote what organ must necessarily and invariably be diseased where there is madness. Psychological and pathological fact shows us that this organ can only be in the brain. Geisinger regularly it reiterated in our own time because it is expresses that basic commitment of contemporary biological psychiatry. This is the systematic argument that Wilhelm presented. Let's proceed. Why did Wilhelm made this argument? The logical of Wilhelm argument seems unassailable. Severe mental illness has to originate in psychological abnormality of some part of the body, and the only plausible candidate location is the brain, since the mind is nothing over and above the activity of the brain. The disorder mind is nothing more than the disorder of the brain. So this is the logic that Wilhelm seems unassailable, and some of the mental illness comes from the part of the body. That's why the others disagree about this argument. True enough, but that is not to say that mental disorder can or will be described by genetics or neurobiology. Here is an analogy. Example, earthquakes are nothing over above the movement of the vast number of atoms in the space. But the theory of earthquakes says nothing at all about atoms, but only the tectonic plates is the best scientific explanation of a phenomenon depends on where real human beings can find comprehensible patterns in the universe and not how the universe is constituted. God may understand earthquakes and mental illness in terms of atoms, but we may not have the time of the intelligence to do so. It is not a radical idea that understanding and treating brain disorders sometimes has to move outside the skull. A man's heart hurls embolus into the brain. He might now be unable to produce or understand speech, move one half of his body, or see half in the world in front of him. He has or he had a stroke and his brain is now damaged. The cause of his brain illness did not originate there, but in this heart. His physician will do what they can to limit further damage to his brain, tissues, and perhaps even restore some of the function lost due to the embolism. But they will also try to diagnose and treat the cardiovascular disease. Is he an atrial uh, fibrillation? Is he mitral valve prolapse? Does he require blood thinner? And they won't stop there. They they will always want to know about the patient's diet, exercise regimen, cholesterol level, and family history of the heart disease. Severe mental illness is also an assault on the brain, but like this embolus, it may sometimes originate outside the brain. Indeed, psychiatric research has already given us clues suggesting that good theory of mental illness will need concepts that make reference to things outside the skull. Psychosis provide a good example. A family of disorder psychosis is marked by hallucinations and delusions. The central form of psychosis, uh, schizophrenia, is the psychiatric brain disease par excellence, but schizophrenia is interacted with the outside world, in particular the social world. Unfortunately, these environmental determinants of psychosis go largely ignored, but they provide opportunities for useful intervention. We don't yet have genetic therapy about this, and antipsychotic drugs can only be used after the fact that are not nearly as good as we'd like them to be. The Decade of the Brain produced a great deal of important research into the brain function, and the New Brain Initiative will do so as well, but almost none of it has yet or likely to help the patient to suffer from the mental illness or those who treat them. But reducing the child abuse, improving the quality of urban environment might very well prevent some people from ever developing a psychotic illness at all. The summary: the theory of mental illness should be, or make reference to the world outside the brain, is no more surprising than that the theory of the cancer has to make reference to cigarette smoke. And yet, what is commonplace in cancer research is radical in psychiatry. The time has come to expand the biological model of psychiatric disorder to include the context in which the brain function is understanding, preventing, and treating mental illness. We will rightly continue to look into the neurons and DNA of the uh, DNA of the afflicted and unafflicted to ignore the world around them. It would be not only bad medicine but a bad science.